Good afternoon, esteemed panelists and distinguished guests. Welcome to the session on art, science, and economics of the creative economy. Imagine a world where boundaries between art and science dissolve, where the brush and the microscope are tools of equal importance. Albert Einstein captured his vision perfectly when he said, "The greatest scientists are artists as well." This isn't just a poetic notion, but a blueprint for innovation. Leonardo da Vinci, a master of interdisciplinary approach, once said, "Art is the queen of all sciences, communicating knowledge to all generations of the world." In the creative economy, ideas are not just ideas, but they become engines of growth and sources of human expression. In an era of technological advancement, we find ourselves at a fascinating crossroad where innovation, artistic experiments, and economic development converge in unprecedented ways. The digital revolution has ushered in a new age of creative economy, expanding its reach and impact on global trade networks and cultural landscapes. The concept of the creative economy has evolved significantly since its inception. It began in 1966 as the economics of art and distinct discipline within the economics. However, it was John Hawkins who popularized the term creative economy in 2001, defining it as the intersection of creativity and commerce. A 2023 Goldman Sachs report estimates the global creative economy is set to double to $480 billion by 2027. The United Nations Conference on Trade and Development recognizes the importance of the creative economy as an evolving concept centered around the interplay between creativity, ideas, and intellectual property. As we dwell into this topic today, we'll explore the symbiotic relations between arts, scientific advancements, and the economic framework within the creative economy. Our distinguished panelists will share their insights into how these disciplines influence each other and illuminate the power of creativity as the key driver of economic change and cultural influence. This brings me to the task at hand. I'm delighted to invite our distinguished panel of guests. They've already been introduced, working at the intersection of art, science, and the economic framework. Please put your hands together and welcome Jahnavi, Neeraj, and Meru. Dr. Shah Faesal couldn't be with us here, but we have a very stellar panel already. I'm going to start with Jahnavi, since you're technically the local out here. The Science Gallery Bangalore has been pioneering the exploration of the intersection of arts and science. You have wonderfully curated exhibitions that you have been doing. Today they spoke about the kind of programming that you all are putting together. So how do you envision the role of science in advancing the creative economy, and what unique benefits arise from the intersection of arts and science?
So, in response to your question, so the separation, so to speak, from science, which I understand, and many who speak European language also understand it, to include the human, social, and the natural sciences, unlike the Anglo-American world where science usually implies just the natural sciences. The separation between them and what we today understand as artistic expression or creativity is a relatively recent one. One can trace it back to the late 19th century, probably somewhere around the middle decades of the 19th century is when it began, because if we even think of how people, one, understood what they understood, but also expressed how they understood it in natural philosophy and moral philosophy, as opposed to the disciplines as they grew in the 20th century, so physics, biology, chemistry, all of that was not quite knowledge at that point of time. It was natural philosophy. It was a way of looking at the world around us and systematically and rigorously understanding it to make truth claims that could be held up by evidence. And all of this knowledge, or all of this understanding, was expressed in art. How was botany understood? Through botanical drawings. How was math understood? Through drawings, through geometrical expression. So I'm not trying to sort of subsume all of it, but Leonardo, who you mentioned, his anatomical drawings or his mechanical drawings or his engineering drawings, or draftsmanship, knowing something really well was not different to expressing or accurately representing it very well. And so this separation, in fact, has had consequences up to the point where today we actually talk about how do you bring these together, or why should we bring these together at all, right? I mean, to remind our audiences in Bangalore of even the impetus or the imperative to accept smallpox vaccine was represented in a painting with the three, princesses of the Mysore kingdom, shown with, their vaccination marks. So I think, so that thought is an important one to hold, because then we understand that this separation is not inevitable. And if it's not inevitable, then there are various ways in which to look back at the past, but also to look at the future in order to then see how might they best begin to engage again together. And so what we've done at the Science Gallery, but that's but one of the efforts, or one such effort, and many more are required, is to bring how processes of knowledge making can converge with processes of making other forms of creative expression, because at the end of the day, research is also a fairly creative process, right? Like, so if you ask, if you ask researchers what is the starting point of their activity, and this includes engineers and designers too, and if you ask artists what are their starting points, they often, you'll find very, very similar language in how they express it. To the more specific point of how this might speak to the creative economy today, or the cultural creative economy today. I mean, I think Meru can speak to it with evidence and with empirical sort of backing. But I do think that establishing in the public domain a framework that includes both, as not inevitably separated, also allows us to, in the public domain, create a discourse, create a debate, create a dialogue on how this relates to what are identified as 21st century skills, required both by, for lack of a better word, the market, but also education and cultural institutions like the one I run. And so I think that is where Science Gallery, but other institutions, and including your effort and the kind of efforts you have been backing at the Museum of Art and Photography, for example, they allow a discourse to reappear on our horizon, which says, actually, there's value in not separating these, because at the end of the day, the coming together will actually allow us to do what we are doing better.
Thank you for that. I'm going to come back. I have many more follow-up questions, but I'm going to go to Neeraj. The trend of the next wave of creators, the nano creators, is making hyperlocal content. We spoke about that in detail. Accenture and DT Group's recent collaboration of the Min Mini app provides hyperlocal content for news while keeping content the central focus. However, we're talking about tech and AI. The algorithms are disadvantages sometimes for creators who have small followings. They sometimes favor the new, sometimes they favor the ones with larger followings. We spoke about YouTube and the monopolistic situation that has been created. So in this evolving landscape, how can companies harness the power of content-centric approach to drive engagement and growth for the creative economy?
One very interesting distinction that's emerging these days is that there is the boundaries between industries are getting blurred, right? So, what were erstwhile media companies are now trying to figure out how to make money through commerce, and what were erstwhile commerce companies are now trying to figure out how to attract audiences through content, right? So now, therefore, the role of the smaller creators then become far more powerful, because these are the people who now know how to curate an audience, how to attract a certain set of users through not just delivering information and entertainment, but by bringing out interaction and engagement, which is what the larger firms have not mastered. So the smaller creators, the creator economy now actually has a very large role to play in bringing that interaction and engagement game back into the entire economy of the country. That's actually evident today already. The size of creator economy in India today is already larger than the revenue that all news media companies earn from their digital properties. Already.
We're also the largest content creators in the world.
We've always been, and with the, I don't know whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. I was talking to the children of some of the newspaper delivery boys, right? So people who have grown up in their life by delivering newspapers. Now, of course, newspaper circulation has gone down. and therefore, they don't make the money that they make, and their children. So I was talking to the son and daughter of one of those, and I said, look, would you want to follow the profession that your father was in? They said, whatever money he makes in a month by getting up at 4 in the morning, I make that by doing 3 TikTok reels. Right? So.
But that's true. But in India, I mean, for newspaper circulation to go down drastically, the thing is, households generally make more money selling their newspaper to the Raddi man than they're paying on their subscription. So they're not going to stop buying them. If no one's reading them, it'll still stay there. So newspapers are still here for a long time, but the way people are consuming their media obviously has changed. Meru, the discourse around AI and the arts has been a contentious one, particularly regarding a perceived threat to practitioners' creativity. In addition, as Neeraj just said, technology has enabled a creator's economy, and there are new avenues of creation and production. In light of this, how can creative practitioners adopt to this inevitable growth of AI within the space while maintaining their values and their contributions? And then I'll come to a follow-up after that.
Okay, can you hear me? Yes. In fact, Neeraj and I were just talking about this earlier on upstairs. So think of it this way, AI, is not, it's going to have a jagged adoption. So it's not like, a new product is released, even one as powerful as AI, and with all the value that it gives, that people wake up one day and they say, we're going to use it. And that's actually been a bit of a puzzle for people who follow this very closely, because one would think that, here's a very powerful technology which can help people. Of course, it can hurt people also. But you would think people will just get up and use it, but it doesn't work that way because of human nature, of course. In terms of, how should creators interact with it, that's what we were talking about. I would urge them to see it as a tool, unless you happen to be in the top 0.001% of people who has already managed to find your audience. You have managed to, you're such a big brand. Unless you're Taylor Swift or you're somebody who's in that category, I don't think there's that many people out there who will not benefit from using AI as a tool, multiple different ways, either to leverage their distribution, improve their content, find new ideas, find new markets. Like one of the things which I think YouTube has rolled out is they've got automatic dubbing, something as simple as that, which what it really means is, your newspaper man's son, whose TikTok reels might be reaching 100,000 people, you can automatically dub using AI in natural language voices, natural voices into Spanish, French, or error-free, almost error-free. So what you're then doing is creating new markets for creators who would never have a snowflake's chance in hell of reaching those markets. So while it has the power of disruption, but it can also disrupt for good, I feel.
In fact, I can't remember her name, who was on the panel with us in Delhi. That's what they do, right? Dubbers, yeah. But, but AI, besides in the publishing space, but there are other challenges besides AI. I mean, AI is a kind of a blessing in disguise in a way. So what are some of the other challenges that one faces?
Within the publishing industry? Okay, so the publishing industry is actually, though it feels like a very legacy heritage industry, is actually quite new. So the book, people think that we've always read books the same way, but we haven't. Until quite recently, until the Gutenberg Bible, and maybe 100 years after that, books were too expensive for anybody to afford. Nobody could really, only royalty could afford to have manuscripts printed and copied and distributed because it was a manual process. So in fact, what democratized books and for the publishing industry was technology, which was, at that time, the printing press, and completely changed the game and created that industry. There would be no publishing industry if it was not for a new technology called the printing press, which has remained unchanged pretty much for the last 400 years. So I would say that it's, the challenge currently facing the publishing industry is the same as all industries which create and sell content. Simple for the economists here, it's demand and supply. That's their problem. That when the publishing industry was at its peak, they were fulfilling demand, right? So there were people who wanted to be entertained or informed, and they printed books either to inform or to entertain. And people bought those books, but they didn't really have too many other ways to get information that was vetted, which was, you knew that you could trust, certain types of books. With the internet, what in retrospect looks like, quite like it looks almost primitive when you think about it, information became very easy and cheap for people. So the publishing industry had a lot of competition from free content, essentially. So you could go to Wikipedia, where you might have gone to read the Tell Me Why series, or there were brands which existed before. Encyclopedia Britannica, people would have had to buy Tell Me Why, Encyclopedia Britannica, these household names, which were then, they could just go to Wikipedia for free. Wikipedia now feels like a legacy brand because it is, of course, the #1 source of training data for AI. So the problem is, very simply, and it's the problem of every creative industry out there around the world, is that there are more people creating content than consuming content. That is the basic problem.
Right. And there's the whole copyright and all the plagiarism.
Yes.
But one thing besides the printing press is technology, is the Amazon effect. When PODs came in, it changed the way of production and distribution of books, which also changed the way books were consumed.
But in a good way for
in
the
a good,
industry,
very good way.
yeah.
No, I'm not talking about all bad. Jahnavi, I think I met you the first time I met you when we had done the first Creative Industries, the Art Cities, Smart Cities conference at the Lalit. And I met you and I asked her, so what are you doing? She said, I'm coming up with this new space. I said, what is it? It's where art and science collide. Okay, that sounds cool. That's how you described it, and it's stuck in my head. So, I mean, your science gallery aims to bring science into the cultural context. Now, there's obviously, you mentioned, there's a separation that has existed. Now, I remember when I went to college, I had 3 choices: art, science, or commerce. And I did science because I wanted to do architecture, but then I was going to arts, and then hardly any boys went to arts. So, you were looked down upon. Then you had to do economics. I mean, but this separation has existed. Do you think our education system is to be blamed, or how has one is trying to do all these things, bringing it together? Has education and the way curriculums are built keeping up with this trend?
So the answer is in your question, it's not. So in fact, when these days now, after about 6.5 years of trying to build this institution, I finally know what I have done, because in hindsight, things become clear. And we are solving, I think, for 3 problems, and the third is exactly what you're talking about. And the example that I give is one of the Indian Institute of Science, which is in this city, the country's oldest science research organization. Today, the country's best known, we call it a university, but it's an institution of higher learning. When it was to be established, Barjar Patsha, who was working with Jamshed Tata and the Maharaja of Mysore to establish this institution, the model was the Johns Hopkins University to have, and I'll say the humanities first, because it is such an incredibly derided sort of educational option, forget career option in this country. So it was meant to have the humanities, law, medicine, engineering, natural sciences, so on and so forth, because that's what universities per se have. That's not to suggest that somehow this model that came to us from Europe or America is the best one. But if you would like to suggest that this is a university, this is the expanse of disciplines that need to exist. Whereas what we do, the Indian Institute of Science is eventually established between 1909 and 1911 with primarily engineering and some natural sciences. And today it continues with that mix, although very, very recently, and by recently I mean the last 1.5 years, a medical school has been added to the mix. So it is, in that sense, a very, very incomplete institution, which has then, in many ways, I'm not suggesting that the Indian Institute of Science is responsible for the pattern of education in this country, but we are remarkably exceptional in the university or undergraduate education landscape across the world, because here, engineers study with engineers, architects study with architects, artists study with artists, humanities people study with humanities people, so on and so forth. And that has very, very serious consequences because, and those who have heard me speak about the gallery have heard me say this again and again and again, and I'll say this to as many audiences as is required because it is a serious problem. The consequence of which is that we have engineers with shrunken imaginations and historians with shrunken imaginations. So historians don't understand the purchase of technology and science, and engineers do not understand the legacies of historical the historical context, but also sociological arrangements or social arrangements and political and cultural purchase of the projects that they lead on. So it is extremely important to reconsider how we think about education and profession. I often say, just a couple of sentences more, I often say that we have a very strong professional conversation around science and engineering in India. We do not have a cultural one. And we need that in order to, in many ways churn what is it that we are wanting people to do? Because, we have a new educational policy that suggests working beyond disciplines. We have some very, very good new institutions, both in the public and the private sector, that are suggesting this change. But this needs change at a scale at which, it can't be an Ashoka University or one of the several 25 IIT, well, one of the 25 IITs of changing curricula. We need a serious overhaul in terms of what we imagine careers are at all. Until we have upward social mobility guaranteed only through a career in engineering or whatever it is that's trending, right? Is it software, is it AI, is it this or it is that? Whatever will get you better salaries and hopefully a ticket or a visa to somewhere in the West is what's going to work. And I think that has to slowly change, because if that doesn't, no matter how many policies we bring in and no matter how well we try to mix, and of course it will go a distance. It doesn't sort of remove the urgency to introduce small changes because, step at a time. But it's going to need a very serious overhaul on what we imagine upward social mobility is before we can actually implement curriculum change with meaning.
I think I'm hijacking part of Sadhana's panel, so I'm going to move away from the education. But there are statistics that
It's
prove
all connected.
that now, one of the top 3 skills employers are looking for is creativity. And today your students are born with technology in their hand. They learn to swipe before they learn to turn a page. And, in the arts specifically, today they're a photographer, tomorrow they're a filmmaker, the other day they're a scriptwriter. I mean, they move seamless, which is a good thing. They move seamlessly through genres. In the heydays, I'm a photographer, or I only paint oil on canvas. Those days are gone. And these kids have technology. They can be who they want to be. And they recreate themselves every day, which is also good. But
before you give me my question, I don't know why you give the best questions to her, and you're not.
Because I like her.
You don't like us.
I just spoke to you last month.
He's not. I don't know how many of you know him for long enough. I don't know why he is dressed down so much today for this panel. He's not even wearing his tie. Except the socks. Except the socks. Okay. No.
There's a pocket square.
Please.
Okay, guys, we're recording.
That's okay. This is that kind of a panel.
This is.
I have the board member of BSc here. I'm fine.
This is what you'll cut reels of. This is what people will. So sorry.
This is the trending part.
The trending TikTok.
No, but the only thing
Nano creators.
The only thing I wanted to add here is that technology is making it so much possible for, artists are becoming technologists now, scientists are becoming storytellers. In fact, the best programmer that I've ever worked with ever in my life was actually a journalist by education and by profession as well. And he said, I became a programmer because no one was writing the software I wanted. You've pretty much done that, you've created Editrix. The best video content that the country is currently producing, in my opinion, is from TVF, and all of them across the board are engineers who did not pursue engineering. So so that cross-functional collaboration is happening.
So that kind of ties me to your question, so you don't grumble. So you've co-authored the Accenture report encouraging traditional media companies to step outside their comfort zone, even suggesting them to go into ventures like, media as we know it is changed, right? It's gone through, even suggesting they go into video game development. So what cross-industry collaborations have you observed, particularly that's effective and that's keeping the creative economy vibrant and innovative?
The genesis of this is still in that point that media industry in past succeeded because they were very good at giving information and entertainment. But we now live in a world where information and entertainment is both commodity. I mean, the volume of content produced by all studios around the world put together in 1 year is less than the content that gets uploaded on YouTube in 3 hours. Okay, so we already live in a world of infinite quantity, and with Gen AI, that quality will still get better. By the way, even today, we run research, and 63% of the people that we talked to said they find user-generated content at least as entertaining as studio-produced content. So, so even today, the quality is good enough, and if it were not, with Gen AI, the quality will also get better. So today, we already live in a world of infinite quantity. Tomorrow we'll also live in the world of infinite quality. Now, in that world, how will a traditional media company compete? What you said about, about the printing press, the exact same problem will happen now with video content as well. And therefore, traditional media companies have this issue that they are not going to be able to compete using what they were doing earlier. So the business of information and entertainment is becoming a commodity. Therefore, they have to embrace the business of interaction and engagement, and they are not ready for it. They're not ready.
Quite resistant to it.
Actually, you're right. They're quite resistant to it because, they'll say, oh, you don't understand, this is art. But is Jawan really art? Is Pathan really art? So, okay.
Ouch. Haven't watched, cannot comment.
So therefore, these media companies will now need to evolve themselves dramatically to embrace very new ways of doing things. To some extent, they will have to stop saying that they are a news media company will have to stop saying they are a news company. An FM radio will have to stop saying that they are an FM radio. They will have to embrace whatever is happening. So if you have to stop thinking of yourself as TV, radio, print, digital. You have to start thinking of yourself as audio, video, text, and experiences. And that's when, whatever Coldplay is doing, and of course I hate the fact that their show is so obscenely outsold. But
technology has something to do with that. I'm not going into that.
They're doing experiences.
Yeah, exactly. These are experiences, and this is what a radio company should embrace today.
Or a travel company. They're doing what a travel company is doing.
So the next media company will actually be a travel company as well.
So they have to move away from giving the award shows and charging the advertisers to get the award, essentially.
I think they're doing that already.
I know, they're giving that. I forgot that. Anyway, Meru, let's talk about Editrix.ai has launched a writers program that helps authors navigate the specific challenges in their work, highlighting a symbiotic relations between writers and technology. I actually, Namita had sent me a demo of your thing. I was so blown away that I kept trying to get you to come to Bombay to be on one of my discussions, and I'm so happy we're actually having this discussion in Bangalore finally. I know we chatted in Delhi. So how can we foster a more collaborative relationship between technological advancements and creative practitioners for the broader creative industry?
That's a really interesting question. So thank you. What I feel is happening here is creators in general, rightly so, a lot of why people create and put something out there for others to see and appreciate is because creativity is what makes human beings special, right? And when you're creating something, you're expressing a way of seeing the world, whether you do that through art, music, books, whatever it is. But it is seen as a core value of being human. What is happening right now is, I think, and I don't think it'll last for very long, I think most creators see AI as a kind of competitor to what is essentially something very human. And that is why you're seeing a kind of resistance to something which might actually help a lot of creators, particularly, writers, I feel. For writers, especially writers who are not being published in the West, who don't already have great publishing deals, I think that AI is an incredible leveler, which, currently there is no such leveler, because the sort of the chain with which a book gets published there's a lot of gatekeeping that goes on in the publishing industry, which means there is a very, very small number of people like myself who sit there and decide what is good and what is bad. But I can tell you that we don't actually know what is good and what is bad. What we are is really trend spotters. We're good at knowing what other people are doing and keeping a very good eye on that. But anyone who, like myself, if I sit here and tell you I can objectively judge whether this is art or this is not, no, I can't do that, because only posterity can judge that. So what I would say to creators out there is look at AI as a tool to improve your art, to improve your chances of finding a readership or a viewership or a listenership or whatever your medium of expression is. Because that is where I think it can help you the most. I think you said this in the last panel, Neeraj, that we were on, that art is an inherently risky enterprise for the artist. That you expose yourself personally, you really put yourself out there, and anybody can come and say, this is rubbish. You don't know what you're doing. You really are quite vulnerable and exposed. But as you said about music and how AI is disrupting the music industry, when AI will allow you to prototype what you're doing much faster and reduce your risks as a creator. So you don't have to spend like 5 years, thinking, should I not do this? You can do it if it works great, and if it doesn't, you don't lose as much as, if you try to do it without that. So that would be my advice in term for AI and creators.
I'm going to come back more to the publishing industry a little later. Jahnavi, climate change is one of the most pressing global challenges today, and the creative economy has a unique role to play in the fight by translating complex scientific issues into narratives that can engage communities. How do you see the creative economy contributing to this global effort against climate change? And what ways can collaboration between artists and scientists shift perceptions on this issue? I'm sure you'll have done many.
So thank you. I wanted to, in fact, make a couple of points, and your question is fabulous because it allows me to bring both of them together. And the first is about the nature of technology. And, Meru, you brought up the Gutenberg Bible, which changed the nature of Christianity. And it's not coincidental that the first use of public transmission for the printing press was to actually print Bibles. So context determines how technologies get used, and we've seen. So just to kind of give you examples, and those who are in this city have heard me, say this. They started with the bestseller, or the book that.
Still in publication.
Well, I don't know. They started with the book that needed to travel, because that's how social order would be maintained. That's also where political power lay, right? And so technology is not separate from discussions of political power, social order. And you see this time and again. So if I'll just speak of a couple of examples. And again, my audience in Bangalore would have heard me say these, which is, sound amplification. If you see early photographs of the Indian National Congress or Mohandas Gandhi or Jawaharlal Nehru, they're sitting in front of a microphone. There would be no public political rallies without sound amplification. Mm-hmm. Similarly, there wouldn't be concerts, or there wouldn't be music of the kind we know today if sound recording, the wax cylinders, the vinyls and everything that came after that, right? So technology shapes to a significant, so television, radio, what we have with the internet, which is not even off today, which is actually, sort of fairly a few decades old now, is a platform that is agnostic to form. And that is what allows the kind of, movement between forms and expressions that is allowed. But that also brings in a very, very important concern that has always been raised ever since the Gutenberg Bible, and in fact even before that, which is information. And the minute you talk about climate change, we're talking about information. So you spoke about information and entertainment now not only becoming commodities, but also one can actually find forms that conflate the two. And when anyone and everyone can do that, how do you discern information that is reliable or backed by a reliable truth claim to information that is not backed by a reliable truth claim, right? And therefore then certain kinds of both institutions but also mechanisms that allow us the discernment and judgment on how whether one can trust a source that is presented to oneself, or how does one critically assess. One might not necessarily need to assess whether this is art or not, but one might need to assess whether climate change denial is real or not, Holocaust denial is real or not. And if you have a generation of young people who've grown on these mechanisms that give them information where one is the equal of another, right? Every bubble looks the same. The videos on YouTube, one YouTube video is not different to another except for, cost of production. Whether you have a good camera or not, whether, and whatnot. But I mean, the quality of cameras are sort of, my mobile telephone camera quality has gone up. So I think, so there's that's the very important aspect of how does one discern, how does one create a climate of discernment in order to be able to tackle some of our very, very critical challenges today. And climate change is one of them. There are others too. And in fact, AI is one of them as well. Surveillance of through information is another one. New gene technologies, medical technologies are another. So there are several frontiers on which this coming together of forms that embody information as technological products is thrown at us without us having the tools to actually deal with it. Right? And so I think we do need mechanisms socially, institutionally, in order, how do you create reliability? Right? Even if you think of how we have learned to trust things. I'm sure. Yeah, sure. So even if you look at how the idea of objectivity in scientific research has traveled through time. Initially, it was the gentleman. You trusted a claim made by someone who was doing research in their garage, or not quite garage then, the Hunterian, whatever, massive mansion, is because you trusted them because you trust their civility. You trust them to not be untruthful. From there, it moved on into the object. So the object or the scientific instrument gave you information that was reliable. From there, you moved on to institutions. So if it comes from Harvard, you rely on it. From there, you moved on to publications. If it's with nature, it's more, so on and so forth, right? So there are similar trajectories for different kinds of information. So what cultural, and this is the last point I'll make, which is that what cultural institutions today need to do is to actually contribute to helping citizens in the public domain understand how they might actually discern how quality information from information lacking quality, and then take action based on that. And I think that's where, that's the work we do. That's several cultures.
I think Janaka had mentioned about Jaya and her AI and climate change conference that I think British Council had supported, which is pretty incredible work going on. I mean, I attended COP28 last year. That's another whole conversation by itself. But what was the point you were making?
I wanted to speak to what you said, because what you've said is of vital importance, and you're absolutely spot on about this. But I just want to add one thing to that. And it actually speaks to what you said about, should scientists be, should they understand the arts and vice versa? I'll tell you why I think it's more important than ever with this leveling that has happened that you're rightly talking about. There's one dirty little secret about human beings, which I'll tell you, having observed thousands of storytellers. There is a misconception based not on fact, but because it's a preference that scientists have. Scientists like to believe that if you present the facts, people will change their minds. Right? This is not true, and it is not even true. It's not scientifically proven to be untrue. Yes, and yet, scientists persist with this fiction that if we just present people with the facts, magically people will change their minds. Yes. And so this has, I think, been to the fact is the only way to do what you rightly say should be done, which is teach people which information to trust and which information to distrust. And from there, we must learn from the people who spread misinformation, is become better storytellers. And I urge all scientists to become better storytellers, because the non-scientists are better storytellers than them. And there is something to be learned from the arts about this. So this is the only thing I wanted to add about that.
So I'll just footnote it, Asad, which is
Neeraj, we'll leave.
Having...
We're agreeing with each other.
No, so the only thing I would say to that is, having now worked in public engagement, or having tried to work, actually, I should say, is that not every scientist needs to become a storyteller, but every scientist needs to be open to having their research being mobilized by people they are able to trust and institutions they're able to trust, because not every scientist can do that.
Yeah, but absolutely, I agree.
All right, moving on. So, Neeraj is feeling very neglected out here. I mean, I'm just letting you know that. So, India's digital public infrastructure like UPI has transformed, it's been a transformative move for India and also globally very well received. And yet much of the AI innovation still depends on foreign platforms and ecosystems. So in the context of the creative economy, do you think India should focus on building independent AI systems that support the creative industry? Or is it more practical to just build on top of foreign platforms? Or what would make an AI, make an India approach look like for?
I think both paths will have to be pursued parallelly. The use cases part, which will be mostly built by private enterprises, can and should be built on top of existing models which are foreign owned largely. At the same time, the foundational models, the foundational infrastructure of AI especially, there should be some sovereign element in it. Different countries are trying to do that. Singapore has a smart AI mission. The countries in Middle East, Kuwait is doing actually something around this space. So there are countries in the Middle East which are building their own sovereign missions. We should also try to do that. The way I see it is as Priyanka has left, is it? ISRO, ISRO space research was the next frontier at that time. If you asked any private enterprise to invest money into it at that point, one, they wouldn't be willing to do it.
Except Elon Musk, but that's another thing.
And he's doing that now, much later. So if you, after using lots of public funds, and even now, his programs are publicly funded. So if you asked a private enterprise to do it at that point in time when ISRO was getting set up, one, they wouldn't be willing to do it. Even if they were willing to do it, would we still want our future in the hands of one private, entrepreneur? And therefore,
It's also a dual-use technology. So
it's a dual use, exactly, right? So same with AI, especially generative AI. So therefore, it is important for the government to set up the foundational, the infrastructural element of AI should be government funded. The private use cases can be built by private enterprises.
may I add
Policy,
to this?
yeah, please.
So I'll speak to this. Again, I'll take like several steps back to it. Only two several steps back to it, which is in the history of statistics, right? So what is AI? At the end of the day, it is backed by massive data sets, which no data set is neutral. Everybody who works with data sets knows that. And those data sets are built on what we understand to be information, which is asked for a particular purpose. So if the data upon which decisions that are being taken about you and your population is not based on questions that you need answered and you need solved, you are effectively servicing or using the AI to service other people's purposes, the agenda. So the sovereignty lies not just in the infrastructure, but also in the kind of data you have in order to serve the kind of functions you want serve or the problems that you want solved. Because right now, if you look at the data sets that are used for large language models for learning are drawn largely from the West. We do not have such large, reliable data sets for the Indian context. We used to have incredible data in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and I know that because history of statistics. But the scale at which we today need the kind of data that would address and forefront our questions and our problems needs to be built. And so you need control. Sovereignty is one word to use, but I would say control over what you're collecting data for, what that data is, what questions that data are, who's asking those questions, and who's asking questions of then the data sets that have been generated. So this entire process needs far more oversight than we have today in order to get to, sort of much larger sort of infrastructures that would make use of it in any useful manner.
Thank you for that. Meru, the creative economy thrives on diverse narratives and voices, and yet access to publishing and media platforms almost limited to a few emerging writers and creators. There's a whole language barrier which also comes in. Then there's the algorithm. So how does one kind of for the creative economy to thrive, kind of democratize the access to put your content out there, to be published? AI is just a means, but how does one actually go about doing it?
So the distribution of content is literally the most difficult problem in any media company, publishing company. I think what we used to see, so what traditional publishing companies like NDTV, all these legacy media organizations their primary purpose was not the distribution or not the creation of content, but the sales and distribution of content. And you trust that site, it has a brand, you go there. That's how they make money. the problem now is it's so fragmented, the way people reach information, that creating content is really not going to be an issue. Anyone is going to be able to create content. How you're going to distribute that content, and by that mean, like, take the content that you have and make someone read your book or listen to your song or read your article, is frankly Russian roulette right now, because no one actually knows. Yes, of course, there's the algorithm which tends to push certain things up and downgrades or certain other things, but it's not like that's a static thing. That's a thing which changes all the time. YouTube is a great example. I don't know how it works in India, but Google, which used to be the world's largest search engine, is really not how people of the future are going to search for things. In fact, people are searching more on YouTube, which is owned by Google, because their algorithm is less skewed towards advertising. So if you are seriously a creator who wants to know how to get your stuff out there, or you work in the publishing industry, very, very few publishers understand or want to understand the mechanics of the distribution that needs to be done to get your stuff out there. In the case of books, that could be, how do you get your book in the bookshop? In the case of a musician, it could be, how do I understand the algorithm so that I'm doing all the things I need to do. I may have a great song, but how are people going to find it? So I used to have an author, he's still somebody I know very well. He described it best for books. He used to explain to the sales team, and it's shocking that this author was the one who had to explain it to the sales team. But he was very good at sales. And he said, dikhega to bikega. Okay, this is the end game. Be all and end all, net, this is what it boils down to. You can have the best content in the world, but dikhega to bikega. And that is the $1 million, billion or $1 trillion question which every media company is trying to answer, but there is no one answer.
Science and arts both rely on funding for growth and experimentation. Now, there's one stat that as AI funding for AI-driven innovations is declining, particularly since 2023. And a report from Traxion says that. I mean, we have Sudhir in the audience, so he'll fund it. But besides that, I mean, how do you think these changes or challenges in funding trends will impact innovation and then creation, and then at the end of it, impact the creative economy? Anyone? Besides Jahnavi?
Just try to
but I had written this question for you, to be honest. But
I'm sorry. No, I mean, one would just extrapolate from the answer she just gave, right? Like, if it's not funded, it's not getting made. If it's not getting done.
But has funding come down for this? So is that going to stifle innovation and creativity? And
no, I think so. So it again depends on what, where, how, what for, right? Like, so funding is critical no matter what. And one might create content, like you said, on YouTube, but if you want it to surface, then you're basically paying for it, right? Like, so funding is critical. Funding is what gets, money is what makes the world go round, as they say. Follow the money trail, follow the paper trail, it is very, and especially after the fall of the Berlin Wall or the collapse of the Soviet Union, however, whichever date is your favorite, we have now largely one framework of how to conduct social transactions globally. Whether you like it or not, that's what it is. It is a market-driven, largely market-driven economy. It is a market-driven economy. And while, one might have personal opinions about what should be, what should be run like a business and what should not be run like a business, it doesn't matter, because the mechanisms by which you will be able to have outputs and outcomes, no matter what kind of activity you're engaged in, depends on funding. And so, any incremental work can happen one way or the other. Sporadic work, as you said, can happen one way or the other. Pockets of, things can happen here or the other. But if you want to have, or if you want to see things change, or if you want impact at scale of any kind for anything, funding will have to be there. And I think I suspect, and this is the last sentence I'll say, which is that, I think people around us recognize it, governments recognize it, including federal, state governments recognize it. And they are doing, I think, more can always be done, but they are doing things. And, I think the nature of philanthropy in India is changing compared to even, say, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. So there is money out there. I'm not saying money out there, go get it. It's not like that, but it is. let me put it this way, things need to change, impact at scale need to be accomplished, and there are funders who are now willing to entertain these ideas.
Good.
Actually, I want to add one interesting trend, which is, Neeraj, maybe you can tell me a little more about this trend, but it's something I've observed, particularly for AI startups. So specifically for that, yes, absolutely, to put in that kind of money for marketing, you do need funding. But building a product has never been easier. For example, somebody like me can build something not even knowing how to code with a basic amount of money. And then, of course, if I want, I can take money later from somebody, allowing me a lot more flexibility than if the traditional VC-funded model. In fact, there's a trend which is happening in America, particularly, or what is known as the solopreneur. A solopreneur is so like another kind of creator economy, where you have people who have 1, 2, 3-person companies using AI, and they will have VCs going on. They will not take VC money. They don't want VC money because they don't need VC money. And this is a big problem, not for them, but for VCs, because VCs need to do something with their money. So it's,
I can always take it, but that's another whole issue.
So there is it's a kind of a paradox where so the barrier to entry to doing something like this has never been lower. And part of the reasons why people have always had a love of saying, I want to write a book, is because writing a book or writing a song has had a very traditionally low barrier to entry. Low barrier to distribution, very high. Barrier to entry, very low. That is the trend you're seeing in tech, is very low barrier to entry coming up. But what that's going to mean is distribution and marketing are going to be king, I think.
Wonderful.
Now you have to tell us what you think about this.
I don't know if that question was originally about funding in AI. I don't think that the absolute quantum has reduced, but the scale at which more money is needed the fulfillment to that has definitely gone down. Not because money supply is relatively shorter in the market right now. With the interest rates coming down, supply will increase. But more importantly, the belief in AI's potential is coming down a little bit because of the hype cycle. Yeah. So right now we are at that point where we'll now start feeling that, AI had so much promise, but it's not delivering. But it'll go back up again. This is so we are in that hype cycle.
But speaking of the hype cycle, there's a Forbes article that I read which says the relationship between AI and content creation is evolving concerns regarding job displacement. And in the creative fields due to automation, yet 96% of people hiring see AI skills as a valuable asset for the candidate to have. So how do you see the role of AI reshaping the way of job creation? And also, what should existing commoners like us do to stay relevant?
Oh, super. In content space, in creative spaces, I think AI is really a gift for us. I have to tell you this story. So beyond my Accenture job as a management consultant, I also am a creative. I write a little bit stories, songs, etc. There's a song I wrote in 2009, lyrics, right? In 2009, I wrote lyrics to that song, and I put a melody to it. I wasn't very happy with the melody, and I thought justice is not being done. Someone more competent than me needs to do this. I sent the lyrics to 20 different music producers, music directors, 15 of them famous, 5 of them not so famous. The 15 who were famous did not even bother to acknowledge the email or the letter, because so busy, who are you, barriers to entry and all that. The 5 who were not so famous actually did produce something in three different countries. I reached out: India, Ghana, Nigeria. I worked with them. We created songs. We went to studios. We still couldn't get the output that I wanted, right? So I was still not satisfied with that until this new tool called Suno.ai came, and in one weekend I created 20 different versions of that song. Of those, one I like. It's not perfect, but I like. Now I can take that piece to a real human music producer saying, "Aisa chahiye. This is what I have in mind. Can you now work with me?" It's so much easier. You know what is, so as an engineer, I know that cracking IIT is tough, right? What is twice more difficult than cracking IIT? Cracking an IIM. What is 4 times more tough than that? It is getting into UPSC. What is 10 times more, statistically 10 times more difficult than cracking UPSC is, if you are a screenwriter who does not live in Bombay, getting your film produced. I have statistics to prove this, okay? But with newer technology interventions, this will go away, right? Now 2 people per team can create a story, at least a basic video using generative AI and then start testing it out on their social feeds. And then if you get good response, then take that data back to a producer and then say, look, this is how I want it to be made.
I'm going to start wrapping up so we can ask some audience questions. So Jahnavi, your latest exhibition, I don't think I've got it right. Is it SCI or SC1560? Sci-Fi 6, okay. Focuses on Bangalore's evolution from a military and industrial hub to a symbol of modern Indian science and technology. Simultaneously, Bangalore has an emerging new cultural capital, home to dynamic ecosystems, so many new museums opening. So how does Bangalore's rich scientific heritage, coupled with this cultural capital rise, position the city in a unique space for this interdisciplinary innovation?
It's like having all the ingredients in my kitchen, but since I don't enter the kitchen and cook myself, one can't anticipate or expect things to happen. And I mean this quite seriously, in that there are probably over 400 research and development units for many tech companies from across the world in the city. There are good research institutions. There's also a management institution. There are many people who can handle projects. The cultural scene is growing. I mean, so we do have the right ingredients. I think that conversation is the main piece. People need to talk to each other, and it is already happening. I mean, Accenture has worked together with the Museum of Art and Photography to create some things. So, so here's the thing, right? Like, if any city in India at the moment has the potential to become sort of the blue sky city, right? Like where the world of culture and the world of engineering and the world of technology and the world of science can come together, it would be this. Now, whether that actually happens remains to be seen. If you look at, so just, Bangalore at times is called the Silicon Valley of India. Also because of precisely what we've argued for in the exhibition, which is that it is India's military, industrial, academic complex in a way, right? Like where things have come together. This has a very deep history of how things have worked together. But if you look at Silicon Valley and its antecedents, I mean, just since the Second World War, and a colleague of mine has written a fabulous book about it called How the Hippies Saved Physics. And you have, so if you see the antecedents of the people who ended up doing tech culture kind of things in the Silicon Valley, these were people who were protesting Vietnam. These were people who were, following Steely Dan, or they were deadheads, or they were doing the range of things. So in a sense, what you're in a way embodying, right? Like
what are you implying out there? Sorry. What were you implying out there with him?
No, that the fact that he is an...
That's what I was asking.
Kya bola? No, we have to make up for the fact that you didn't ask him the best questions. The fact that, as an engineer, you would still actually also experimentally look at music and, try to do something. So I think unless that's the norm in a sense, right? Like we can institutionally do things. MAP will do things, we will do things, etc. But I think the viability of a culture creative industry surviving, emerging and surviving and being sustained in the city depends entirely on a more spread out desire to do so, right? Like, and right now I think it's in what's happening is in very, very small
pockets.
Individuals, not even pockets, right? Like,
silos.
but the raw ingredients or the agents are there. Let's see what happens.
All right. Meru, with the advent of augmented reality, AR, VR technologies is opening new frontiers for storytelling and educational experiences. So what potential do you see for these technologies to create new formats of interactive literature? And how might this impact the economics of the publishing industry?
So,
as your closing question.
There is a history of people having tried different formats. They haven't really worked. So there's been enhanced ebooks have been around for a long time, but consumers have never really taken to them. The print format has in fact been growing in spite of ebooks. They live side by side. I think in terms of publishing, and I'll answer specifically for publishing, people like the print book because it doesn't talk back to you. And they don't really want it to blink and beep and be shiny. I think Jeff Bezos knew this because, he made it, they could have made the Kindle full of color. They've just released a color Kindle now, but let's see how that does. But in general, people like the romance around a book, right? And they don't want that to change. And so publishers are fine as long as people buy into that story. There is a story which is around the print book and people love it. And it's a great story. So the best thing which I would say for publishing companies and entities is keep that story going, keep that romance going, and don't get too enamored by new formats, because the new formats will come. Augmented reality, I don't know, I mean, the metaverse has failed, I think. I don't think anybody really seriously really thinks about that anymore. But one thing which, as a new form of storytelling, which we will see, and I don't know how that will be, screenwriters, as you said, they will be able to actually make their own movies using AI, which has never happened before. The barrier to entry to not YouTube type of video, but feature film video is about to change dramatically. So when we see individual creators doing what individual writers are doing, but not with books, but with movies, that's going to be quite an amazing thing to watch. It's going to create a lot of, you might see a lot of writers saying, let's do that instead of doing a print book.
That's what I was saying, right? One day they're a photographer, the next day they're a filmmaker, then the next day and technology is that enabler. Neeraj, the concept of the digital twin, which you replicate you have the digital and then you have the phygital or the physical. What emerging trends do you see in the entertainment and in this media industry emerging that is now going to be the next game changer?
So short-term use of generative AI to create content, it will become mainstream. In the next 3 years, and I shouldn't forecast on when I'm being recorded, but my long bet is that in the next 3 years, there'll be at least one major motion picture where at least 60% of the content will be fully generative AI produced in the next 3 years. But this is short term. In the long term, I think while metaverse has died down in terms of its mind share, but augmented reality is still very real. And now the devices are becoming better. So, all major tech players are now introducing their either glasses or fully, Vision Pro-like devices. The devices are now becoming better. They just need to become lighter and cheaper cost-wise. Then the augmented reality world will fly off. So that's another area which I think will skyrocket in the medium to long term.
I think there was a film last year, if I'm not mistaken, at Cannes that won, was AI-generated documentary film that won an award. So there is a lot of content already out there. Guys, I'm just going to open it up for questions before I wrap. Any questions? Yes, sir. Man in the front row.
I can just shout. No, there's a mic. Can you hear me? Yeah. My question is about science and arts coming together in India. If you look at historically our temple architecture, Hoysala temples is a great example of engineering and design coming together. The West has, of course, embraced it. Apple is a great example, tech and design. My question twofold. One, I'm wondering, where did we lose this in our education of not looking at things in silos? That's one. And two, we do some work with schools, and what I hear teachers say is, the kids are very open to the arts, but it's the parents that cause the problem, right? How do we change these adult mindsets? It's a cultural mindset in India, right? So you can't take up the arts, and you don't know how to marry the two. So anybody can take it.
My quick short answer to that is I don't think kids these days really care about it. They cross the boundaries themselves, right? So the boundaries that we think we are imposing on them, which is why I was saying, and it's not even a recent phenomena. IIT Roorkee, BITS Pilani, both of these institutions are supposed to be great engineering places, but they're also great for developing creative geniuses coming from there. And simply because the environment there allows them to transition by themselves. It's not institutionally designed. The kids just do it themselves. So we don't really have to do anything different.
Just an
education. Do you really think kids care about our education system?
It's not the kids. It's not the kids. It's the kids who get forced to take up science because it's supposedly the dumb kids who go and take the arts. And they look down on, like Asad, you said.
Anybody? I can...
We are also talking about a very thin slice of India's population, right, who's allowed to do this. I mean, the bulk of India is not allowed to do any of this.
And we'll come to education in the next panel. So now...
Can I also just add one little counter view on this, which is coming more as a parent than a practitioner of the arts, is that if you really want to stop children from being interested in the arts, please make their educators and the parents tell them to do it. So if you don't, so if you really want them to love it, please let the situation continue. They're more likely to love it than if the parents say, please ye karo, is my view.
I think, yeah, we need to change the parents, quite frankly. I mean, they just, so after our first exhibition, and Sadhna, please get this edited out of the final video, my team, my young team, a very young team, basically at the end of the exhibition said, I think we should have, we think we should have a board outside the exhibition hall which says, parents, teachers and slippers outside. Because otherwise, you can't engage with the minds in the way they have to. I mean, look, as I said, upward social mobility is still through engineering and to some extent through the sciences. Until a range of things change, this is not going to happen. I mean,
I see it changing a little. I mean, I see a lot of kids going down the performing arts. Parents are supporting them. It is a small margin, but it's urban. Yeah.
Not just urban. It's like the 1%.
Yeah.
It's the 1%.
Okay, let's move on. Education is the next panel, guys. Please.
Yeah.
But let's make it a round table.
Hi, so I had one question. You guys spoke about entertainment, but I come from advertising in particular. So I started with main media advertising, then I went to digital. And from that, now I moved to the brand side and in-house branding right now. So I've done all the jumps and I'm using AI on an everyday basis. So I'm just trying to, and now the new stereotype here is anybody can write copy. I'm a copywriter and I'm also a designer, but now suddenly this new threat I have to deal with is the fact that anyone can write copy, and also the fact that if you have an idea, the copy is just done. I mean, I understand it and I'm ready to face it, but to deal with this stereotype, it's a little irritating, but also I just want to understand how it's going to work in the future. Is it actually a threat? I'm using it, I'm completely fine with it, and something that would take, let's say, 3 or 4 days, I get done in half a day, and I'm happy with it. But it's very, annoying more than anything else.
You want to answer?
I would love to answer that, because your question is the answer itself. Just because AI makes it faster does not mean it makes it better. You make it better. And because you're an experienced copywriter, you have the ability to discern between what is garbage and what is really good output from the AI tool. So AI is just a tool for you to improve 10x, 100x your productivity, not replace you.
Okay, the gentleman at the back. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Ken. I've spent a few years working in the cultural sector, bringing art and science together. So my question is slightly self-critical. There's a very old-fashioned version of thinking about what science and art is, which is deep expertise, and this idea that maybe it takes a minimum of 10,000 hours to master anything. And yet, as we've heard so eloquently from all of you, everyone is flipping, everyone is multimedia. No one can decide whether they're art or science, engineering. Are they selling petrol or are they making advertisements? Are we running towards a situation where everything becomes superficial and where there's no point in bringing anyone in contact with anyone else because it's one blob of multidisciplinarity meeting another blob of multidisciplinarity, and therefore, what's the point of making that collide? And I repeat, I'm responsible for exactly what I'm now wondering, whether it's too wise to make everyone a master of everything and not very interesting at anything.
All right, who's taking that?
I can take that. I think there is actually an answer to that question, and the answer is for those of you who, like yourself, are experts at something, whatever that thing is, this is there's no better time to push the boundaries of what you're an expert at. So there may be other people who will match you as generalists, but if you want to innovate further in whatever it is you're doing, copywriting or another, science or whatever it is, you have the most powerful tool in the world in your hands, which other people will not be able to use in the same way. So it's then up to you to manipulate it, use it. There are no experts out there to tell you how to do that, but a basic amount of experimentation will put you leagues ahead of everybody else. So that's what I would say to experts.
Asad, if I may add a footnote to that,
Oh, Lord. Okay.
which is, I think, I agree with what Meru just said, but it's also about, at the end of the day, these are forms, right? Like the ability to be a photographer or this or that. At the end of the day, there's content, right? Like theater, for example, is a several thousand-year-old form. and books are also now several hundred years old. At the end of the day, what you write, even if you get sort of, it assisted, edited, etc., or even your theatre piece or your music piece and whatever, at the end of the day, it's one thing to create and another thing to then have someone respond to it. And if your theatre piece is not driving people to tears or to laughter or whatnot, or your book is not speaking to people in ways in which the human touch, you're not, well, I mean, I don't know.
We all are
You bring
different,
a
and
new perspective.
based on our
very
experiences
specific.
guide what we
Exactly.
produce.
We all come with, our experiences are not uniform, and therefore
Which
what we
is what is
produce
good
is
about
not
it.
uniform, and therefore our ability to speak to people through this. And we have somewhat skirted your question, Ken, but so I think as long as we have that ability to do this, whether we are doing art or whether we are doing science, in terms of our ability to produce something new or a way to look at what is already known in a new way is not compromised. I think we'll still be sort of doing relevant-ish things.
To end, I don't have time to do a conclusion, so I'm going to do a quick rapid fire round. Neeraj, creativity or data? What drives innovation more?
Creativity.
Science-based innovation or art-led disruption?
Wrong question.
One or the other. Answer.
It's not one or the other.
Okay, perfect. The future of AI in the creative economy. One word.
New directions.
Lovely. Thank you all for this wonderful panel. We needed more time with such a spectacular set of. But thank you all for being here.